Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Bazaar podcast. Today you will be joined by me, MetallFenix, as well as Sixten
Hello, hi, my name is Sixten.
and Walter.
What's up? This is Paper Plane Walter.
And finally, of course, we have guest of the week, Classy. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the people a bit about who you are.
Hello, I'm Classy. I started playing this game on max release, and I've been maining him ever since. I'm mainly known for a few top placements at the Community Cups that's run by the Bazaar staff. I placed rank 1 legend as my peak, and I usually run a Mac guide that we'll be talking about later today.
Perfect. And as we have been kind of asking people lately, just as a sort of fun icebreaker, how did you end up with the Bazaar?
I think I saw Crip playing it on stream back when it was still early, and then I got the Founders Pack. And then I played for a little bit, just like to explore it in the first few seasons, and started playing more seriously on max release.
There you go. And on the topic of Mac, of course, he is one of the characters that received a new expansion this season. How have you been finding his new stuff so far?
I'm actually liking it a lot. He has a lot of tools that are like universally strong. And the fact that you have more reagents kind of promotes a style of play where you can gamble more, and that makes the game more fun because you have a lot of items that you get to see throughout the game, and you have to flex your board around what you get from the reagents. Also gives you some late game outs, because if you're struggling, you might be able to hit some crazy enchanted item, and that's like another way to try to save your game if you're in that spot.
Yeah, it's really been giving me the vibes, just like watching people play it, that it's almost like it's brought Mac kind of back to his roots, how the character sort of originally played when he came out.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be about transforming and also potions, and then in the last expansion he shifted to completing quests, like doing the relic stuff. But now we're back to how it used to be.
I have noted that it does still seem like people are finding pretty decent success incorporating the quest stuff with the new stuff. Is that something you find yourself doing a fair bit of the time, or is it more just focused on not doing relics so much?
I've been clicking them a lot less. Firstly, because of the gold change, where we start at 15 gold instead of 20. It makes buying more than one relic a little difficult if you want to win your early days, which in my opinion is even more important now with like the new hero and then quite a lot of aggressive characters on the ladder. And then there are cases where you can bring in a relic into your build, but I would only do like one. If you want to do that full relic build with like Tomb of the Ancients and such, it's still possible, but I think it's a little bit risky now.
So it just feels
So
like it's not.
sorry, can I just
Oh, yeah, go
ask
for it.
real quick, like, and when you said you're clicking red a lot early game, you mean you're favoring, you mentioned Refractor and like those type of lines, like hybrid weapon, and like effects spam type stuff, as opposed to like pure like carpet, like I'm trying to crit, right?
I think carpet is the best still.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, if I can play carpet, I will in the early game, and refractor as well. The reason why is because I think potions is the strongest thing to play right now. There's like a lot of different ways you can build a potion board, and it keeps up in the late game as well. And potions you can easily fit onto a carpet board because you have to play the like the bottled lightning, and then you can easily play potions with the refractor board too. because of all of the status effects.
Got you, because it's kind of like a bridge between carpet and the other builds with the bottle lightning, boiling flask kind of stuff. So you could have like a mid-game boiling flask that's functional for the carpet side of your board, while also
Exactly.
potentially is bringing you into some kind of functional late game with flying potion or whatever. I
Yeah,
gotcha.
exactly. Yeah, flying potion is, in my opinion, the best tool that Mac got. Combine that with boiling flask that starts at silver now, and your board will be permanently hasted for the rest of the game. You could play that literally in any build. It works everywhere.
What would you say are your like backup options then when you don't have the primary kind of just carpet line?
Yeah, so if I miss on carpet and refractor, then there are like all the old options still. So candles is fine with a bunch of small items. It's pretty easy. Poison is okay still. It's just a little risky. Like there's Stellas now, which also kind of burst you down and put you on a clock with like the aerial turret. So I don't really prefer those like slow ticking types of lines anymore. But all the old stuff will be fine. You basically just want to find like a medium item to play around.
But
And I
you'd
guess
say
leeches
that
is okay too.
the thing you kind of value the most is just having something that has a lot of speed.
Yeah, Mac is known to be pretty slow, but if you click the red items, like the weapons, you can kill them fairly fast. Oh, and I forgot to mention, crocodile tears is absolutely disgusting,
Ah, yeah.
and you can kill people really fast with that item. Like usually one cast is enough.
That makes a lot of sense. What would you say? So obviously, like Refractor hasn't really been the most commonly played item. So I think a lot of us, myself included, aren't immediately clued in as to what a normal or typical like Refractor board would look like in the early game. So what are you usually trying to pair with that item?
Yeah, so there's two main ways. The first one is if you are a fan of like Femur and you find the Sands of Time early, it works pretty well with Refractor as a Femur replacement until you find the Femur in the late game. So you just do like Sands of Time, and then you add some slow items, and most importantly, the Smelling Salts to the right of Refractor, so it's permanently hasted as you're slowing the enemy board. And then another option, which I usually just do, is kind of just picking up what you can find, but adding potions such as like a Rainbow Potion is really good for Refractor. Obviously, include like the Flying Potion combo that I was talking about, just to like keep your Refractor hasted. And then for both of these boards, you need to have some kind of lifesteal to sustain. So Runic Potion is the best, but you can just use the Mortar and Pestle until you find it.
Gotcha. And so it's almost like the Sands of Time setup is like how we originally used to play Femur, but instead of just the incense, you're more looking for Sands of Time to be what clues you into that specific direction.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. And then once you're sort of past the like, we'll talk more about the playstyle in general later. But when you're past the kind of initial um I'm just doing red stuff, but now I'm trying to find direction instead. What are usually like your signposts for various directions? What do you look for the most?
Yeah, sure. So most important things to look for are Boiling Flask, because that is how you really reach any sort of late game with potions. And of course, Flying Potion you'll probably have by now. It's a bronze item, so it's pretty easy to find. And then notably, the Potion Distillery is what I look for, because this lets you transform potions throughout the game, so you can assemble some boards with like duplicate potions of your best potions. And also, it is cooldown reduction like a lot for your end game, so it's easy to fit that in. It's also like there's like a way you can get it early, where you go to Curio, grab a large bronze item, and then you use some catalysts There's only 4 large silver items in max pool right now, so there's a pretty good chance you can hit this distillery like every game.
There you go. And is there anything that like signposts you that you might want to do something other than potions, or is that like almost always where you end up?
Oh yeah, so for the end game options, it's mainly just like vat of acid if you find it like at a good enough time where you can like get the tags filled up.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then the bottled explosion is pretty good. You just need to make sure you have boiling flask for these things most of the time. If you don't, I usually also hold the recycling bin whenever I see it, just because the vial launcher stuff is still fine. It's just a little bit harder to find compared to last season. But the potion shop now sells items related to potions as well. So always click that, and you can easily find like things that aren't even potions but work with potions. So you can find the entire recycling bin and like vial launcher combo in one shop, basically. So it's pretty consistent. Now, if I completely fail that, like if I don't find these things, I'll just go back to other builds which are still fine. Like the self-poison build is fine with like a lot of different combinations as long as you have rapid injection and like adrenal converter, same as before. If I had like that femur start with like the sands of some slow items, you can pivot into like femur itself or dragon even, which is the new item, the Sky Terror item.
Yeah.
And then Poppy Field, still fine, just harder to find. And the carpet build can go to the end too. The crit shop is still really good for it.
Okay. Well, there we go. Have you been playing any Stella at all yourself?
Yeah, so I played her exclusively for the first few days, just because there was that tournament. So I was trying to prep for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I only played her on my way to Legend. And then after the most recent patch where there were like changes to all the characters, including Stella, I played a little bit just to see what was different.
Gotcha. How have you been liking her?
I liked her a lot in the beginning because I felt like she was also like a flex character similar to Mac,
Mm-hmm.
where you can flex around what large items you see off of your early game. Like all the large items are very playable, and then you just fit what works for your board. I don't think that's changed too much since the recent patch. You just can't do the curio trick anymore, so you have to naturally find the large items.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of Stella, I know that there's someone in the back of the call right now that's just absolutely trying their best to contain themselves until it is their turn to speak. So, Sixten, why don't you fire off a little bit
Yeah,
of
I have
what
been
you've been up
living
to?
in my weather machine all week. No, but I've been playing Stell all the way to Legend, and now I'm grinding to rank 1. And the weirdest part is it feels like a different hero every week, not just because of balance patches, but because of the way we discover new things about her. So lately I've been mainly playing aerial turret with delivery drone on the board, and then you use your delivery drone to charge your aerial turret because it's your only flying item. And then you find Shadow Cloak, and then you can get that to 8 or 9 wins, and then you just pivot to a large item. As for the large items, I've been playing a ton of Lightning Rod lately. I realize one of the more efficient ways to play that is to simply make it fly. Once you have it as a flying weapon, there are lots of ways to buff it, and that way you are not as reliant on skills anymore as before. And that can kind of get you over the line against everything except for pigs with a lot of health. So that's the bane of your existence there. Then I've been playing a lot of the private runabout, which is the hottest item currently, I think, for Stell. A lot of people agree with me or others that it's too strong currently. So that item has been occupying a lot of my playtime. But other than that, I'm still playing Swallowtail, which remains my favorite Stell item. I am playing a ton of Daggerwing. I like to play it with the sandbags plus paper airplane. I also am a big fan of Hanger now. since you can do a lot of cool combos. You can play that with the Steam Washer, and then you just need to find something like a conflagration, as well as a battle balloon, and you have an infinite going. So yeah, just a lot of stuff on Stella overall. I think she is so much more fun than the hero I used to play, which is Dooley. I tried a couple of Dooley games, and I just was reminded by how many of his items don't speak to each other. How if you start buying dinosaurs, you're just gonna play dinosaurs for the rest of your run. Whereas on Stell, if I start out playing tools or I start out playing chicken cannon, I can end the run playing something completely different. So yeah, I am all aboard the Stell train. That's what I've been playing.
Yeah, I think both like Mac and Vanessa have definitely like when they were at their most fun, they played exactly the kind of way that Stell does now. So it is so nice to see, especially if it is the case, which it's easy for me to believe, but I definitely gotta try it out too, that Mac works that way too now. I think that's such a fun play style for playing this game, especially. That the more viable, like the more variety we have in terms of who and how can play like that, the more just fun it makes the game, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just Stella's opened up the eyes to me how important it is to try and make every item have a place or be exciting to look at. I was like, when you play heroes like Dooley in the past, you are so used to all of your items in the shops just being, you just ignore them essentially. But when you have a hero like Stella, where all of her items fit into cool archetypes and there's like overlap and you can do hybrid builds, it just makes the game feel so much more complex and deep in a way where you're just excited to do the next run because you have no clue what you're gonna be playing that time. So I definitely gotten addicted to the game in a new way, thanks to Stell. Because as a dually main, we didn't really have this kind of luxury to have like 5 or 6 different builds going at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. I really hope they are able to maintain Stell this way and also bring the other heroes more like this. Again, Mac seems to be heading in that direction, but Pig and Dooley both seem like they still are kind of left behind a bit when it comes to this idea of all your items being playable. So
Yeah,
we'll see what
and
happens.
Vanessa does feel like, from what I've heard or seen from other players, she's ended up in somewhat of a similar pickle in the sense that obviously she's very strong right now, but it's especially all of her red stuff that's strong. And unlike Mac and Stell, who also have strong red stuff early, but kind of natural means of then getting out of aforementioned red stuff, it always feels on Vanessa like you kind of don't really have an easy escape. If you're in red stuff, you're in red stuff. And if you try to get out of red stuff, a lot of the time you end up on like a half-baked aquatic line or like weather glass or something, and it can be so hard to find your footing before you're just kind of effectively out of the game.
Yeah, the impression I got from a lot of top legend Vanessa players is that the only way you're able to compete with Mac and Pig late game is if you have a scaled Julian. Like Julian is how Vanessa is able to scale effectively. Like Keg is no longer a reliable strategy. So that just means that if you know that Orange Julian is necessary to be able to have a chance on day 13, you're kind of naturally drawn to just playing weapons, right? Like if
Yeah.
there isn't an aquatic equivalent to Orange Julian, then you can't really commit too hard to aquatic stuff unless you just go tempo 10-0. So I think Vanessa probably just suffers from not having as many late game viable win conditions currently as something like Mac or Stellar Pig does. So she kind of has to commit to the red stuff because the red stuff has the best scaling currently. But yeah, that's the impression I got there.
Can I hop in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Of
So,
course.
firstly, for like the clickable items thing, I think Max still has a lot of unclickable items that I would like to see like buffed a little bit just so they can see some play. For example, like off the top of my head, Viper Cane and like Secret Formula. Secret Formula is such a cool item with a lot of like lore implications for Mac himself, but it seems like it's unplayable right now.
It was
so.
playable for a grand total of I think like 3 days or something, maybe 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then they were just
So,
like, nope.
Yeah,
Take it
I
out.
think Max still has a problem of unclickable items, but it's definitely gotten better with all the potions being good now.
I assume
And
he's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume for him, he's helped a ton with that particular issue just from all of the catalysts, since you have so much higher odds of finding a way to get into your actually good stuff.
yeah, Catalyst definitely helps. You can easily just roll things out and get the items you want. Also, for Stella, I noticed that being a new hero, of course, she has a lower number of cards. So that definitely helps her in terms of like how many items are playable. But she definitely has a lot of great items to play.
It would be very
And
fun, like if someone just has way too much time on their hands. I'd love to see someone do it. Doesn't have to be perfectly accurate, but to have like a percentage for like good to unclickable or clickable to not clickable items for each hero, to just see like what does it actually lab out to? Does it just feel way more lopsided because Stella has less items, or is there really actually a very substantial difference?
I would say the
as a
less
percentage?
items thing is definitely pertinent, right? Like, so part of what Stell enjoys is that like because there's fewer cards, there's less like distance, quote unquote, between the extreme end of one type of card and the extreme end of another type of card. So on average, your cards are quote unquote closer together in terms of like strategically. Whereas the more cards are released, like, okay, Mac has a self poison synergy that's over here, and now there's a potion synergy that's over here, and it's like they have to keep filling in the middle. You can like it. There's like a process of like pushing out against the borders of like what the hero is doing, and then after you push out, you then have to like reconsolidate by printing items that like fill in the gaps that pull the synergies back together again. I mean, we've seen that over time, right? Like we saw Mac get pushed very far into this like quest thing, and then cards come in and fill the and kind of fill the gaps in between where the quests are and where his original kit was. So I think that like it's always like a work in progress as they release new cards, like trying to get the hero pools to be matching in size. Like that's also going to be a goal of theirs going forward. Like we'll probably see lots of new Stell cards in the next couple releases, right? As they try to build Stell's pool back up to where the other heroes are, so that so that she feels more on even footing from a upgrade point of view. Because right now, I think one of the things that's really strong about Stell is not really a problem they can fix. It's just that it's just so easy to get diamond items on Stell. You just like, not only do you have way thinner shops because you have fewer items, you also just have like hammer, like, so you already were like, and you have like 2 skills that upgrade items, so like you also have like so many different paths to upgrade, even just beside shopping, in addition to also having the thinnest shops. So it's like she's very good at just having a full diamond board, or like a board where it's not full diamond but all the cards you care about are diamond.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say something. I think in a way I am finding it more fun when heroes have focused item pools, if that means that the item pools are like more items feel playable, right? So I'm not sure. I am a bit concerned that when Stell gets 30 more items added, some of this cool way you can play here where we just pivot to left and right because we have bridges between every build and every shop feels impactful, with 30 more items that like create new archetypes, maybe she will start to feel a bit more disjointed, and you no longer can go from tools to slow to vehicles in the same run, because that distance is too costly now. You can't reliably, you know what I mean? It might be that.
Yes, but that's probably necessary on some level. Like it's always a spectrum, right? So like she could maybe be more spread out than she is currently, and that might feel more fair from the perspective of like not being able to force or not being able to have such reliable diamond upgrades all the time. But like I think if they do a good job of it, there can still be like fluid paths between her lines, right?
Yeah,
Like
it
that.
all depends. I think some expansions have done a lot better job at feeling like expansions instead of just these, I don't know what to call them, but like they're living their own bubble. You know what I mean? Like the dually, like some of the dually stuff he
Yeah,
was
they're
given.
they're it's the difference between what you call a parasitic mechanic and an altruistic mechanic, right? A parasitic mechanic wants you to have as much of that mechanic on your board as possible, and an altruistic mechanic wants you to play it with like other stuff, right? So
Yeah,
something like self poison synergies is very parasitic, right? It wants you to have all self poison synergies on your board for them to be good. Um, Whereas like something like a mechanic that's more kind of like open ended, like flying, is like much more altruistic, right? Like you can take it in many directions and it can fit with many types of things.
yeah, we have that example in dually where they have actually moved away from self burn being an archetype, so they reworked pyrocarbon. And I think one of the reasons for doing that was because self burn was such a niche archetype where you just had to find, if you didn't find your nitro or your uh well, back in the day, thrusters, it just didn't work because it didn't work. Like there were no other self burn items, and then they would have to keep printing self burn items to make it work, but then you have these items that only work with each other. So it seems that they're becoming more cognizant of that issue, and so far Stella doesn't really have any of that. I am slightly concerned about her self-destroy archetype in the future might be feeling a bit like that, but that's really hard to say. We don't know how that one is going to pan out yet. But yeah, so far I just think Stella is so fun to play, and I could play her forever. And I just hope that her new items can retain the fun and not like dilute her fun, basically. Anyway, that's all I have for Stella in terms of what I've been playing.
Oh yeah, for Vanessa, I'm friends with a lot of really good Vanessa players, so I usually just watch them play when they stream, see what they do. I noticed that they usually do not do the Julian stuff actually, and in fact, well, they all have different playstyles, which is really funny, because when I was asking them to backseat me one time and like go through a run, everyone was arguing with each other about what to do. So they're all like finding a ton of success doing different things, which I think the Vanessa players in the community might not be doing. So I know one guy likes to just do full red weapons and full tempo, like getting wins before day 11 or like before any of those Exodia builds show up. And then a lot of the Flex Vanessa players tend to do like burn in the beginning, just really strong. Now with the new buffs to some of the items, like for Lighthouse, for example, and then pivoting a lot into like Anchor and Boulder, which are both one shots if you do it right. And then that usually allows you to deal with any hero. You just have to add like Clamora, Icicle, and like start of combat freezes, and you just one shot them. So that seems to be really cool.
Yeah, that is definitely a very interesting alternative way to potentially like get yourself into the late game. I do
There's a
remember
Vanessa
like
streamer that I watch a lot, and right now, just as a counterpoint, he's totally Julian maxing. I gotta be honest. Like, Leo Durango, if you're listening.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah,
don't
I
know
know
if you know.
Leo.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's definitely. It's so interesting because Vanessa is like, it's a long time ago we would have all said she's the easiest hero, she's the starter hero, and in a way, like I feel like I can make the least definitive statements about her right now compared to anyone else. Like I can definitely say definitively that Julian is strong, but beyond that, I feel like there's so much disagreement about what is good. Because I've also heard people say that they thought that like there was still life in like the slow package, that if you have Lighthouse and this other stuff that stuff was still actually possible and good. So I've heard a lot of conflicting info on Vanessa, and I'm not a Vanessa player really myself. So yeah, it's very interesting spot she's in as a hero, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Oh, I was gonna say, has anyone here been playing any Dooley, or am I gonna be the Dooley representative?
You
'Cause I at
are
least
the duly representative.
right. So from what I understand, they removed the tech tag from pulse rifle, and this had like a very well. The side effect of that was that now railgun is a lot worse, and it has seemed to be that people are now playing a lot more dinosaurs than before. So if I understand correctly, they are now arguing that you can just kind of play dinosaurs as a strategy on do, like not as just a one every 5 games. No, you can actually like just find an early dinosaur and just play for that. So that seems to be one of the stronger duelist strategies. Some people are still doing pulse rifle cloak, but apparently that falls off pretty hard, especially now in the late game. And so I'm not sure if that's still a viable thing. And then there are some people who are really high on armored core, because we are currently in a meta. I think, well, I think it's fair to call it like almost like a shield meta in a way. Like Stell has a lot of, I don't know, it feels like there's a lot of shield on ladder, and I think armored core is one of the better ways to scale shield, especially with bunker. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been getting from Dooley. A bit of dinosaurs, a bit of armored core, and then some pulse rifle. But I don't know if anyone else here has any insights on Dooley currently, just based on watching
No,
streams
although
or.
I definitely am noticing the dinosaur trend in my opponents for
Yeah,
sure.
me too.
That's definitely a thing.
I would say it's probably the most or close to the most common late game Dooley build I face currently that actually feels threatening. So I'm not surprised that people are having success with dinosaurs, because they pair nicely into Stella, I think. Just Stella has a lot of items that don't want to be destroyed. So, well, I guess
Yep.
all heroes do to an extent, but especially Stella, I think. So,
But she's
yeah,
definitely assembling fragile combos that are often relying on a single small item to power.
yes,
Like that's a big part of it.
yeah.
And
If
so
your
you're
paper
like,
airplane or ornithopter gets destroyed, then you are, that's gonna be hard to recover from if that's like your engine for your late game combo. Whereas I think Pig
Also,
at least is a bit more. I wouldn't call him immune to those things, but he's less reliant on small items in the late game generally.
Square
From
Pig definitely likes playing against dinosaurs. That's a good matchup
yeah,
for squares.
I think
And
Monetary as
probably it's
well.
good for
Probably
property too. It's
yeah,
honestly probably good for property.
I think one of the big things might be that I feel like this is a sort of tempo meta now. Like, the outlier is Pig, but when you have four heroes that like playing sort of around the early game and then one that doesn't, you can just run the numbers on the math. You definitely have pretty good odds of facing other people who kind of played for the early game. And I
Yeah.
also think that a lot of the, now that we've had the nerf to Shiny Hammer and all that stuff, Pendulum got like significantly nerfed. A lot of the things that were the most obviously like very high power in the late game has gotten removed, to the point where I would argue that, especially when piloted by a somewhat average player, most characters right now are weaker than they were before in specifically like the very late portions of the late game. And I think that opens up a lot of space for the type of builds that are like that, or dinosaurs or much of the large gold item stuff we've been doing on Stell, or even just running like hanger boards that don't really have anything in particular going on other than I just put hanger and tools and maybe I burn you a bit, but your board is probably awkward enough as well that if we match up, you might just fall over because I've bonked your stuff. Um, and I think in that type of world is when dinosaurs feel like they thrive the most because they occupy exactly that space of if everyone else is weak and awkward, the fact that we have meta scaling and just make a big number. I mean, it kind of almost functions the same way as Julian, to where like it becomes a very easy go to strategy, especially for players who um like obviously on Dooley in particular, this is also being done by very good players, and as we've mentioned on Vanessa, some really good players are playing Julian and some people are doing other stuff. But it's a very like convenient strategy to go for because all you really need to do is make number big and then you probably have an okay shot in the late game. So the threshold to get into it is just not very high.
Yeah, I would say we are in a very mid-rangey meta. It feels like I
Yeah.
think before the shiny hammer nerf, it was more of a combo-oriented chaos hellscape where people were one-shotting you left and right, and stuff was just it was a bit more chaotic.
Yeah, I
Now
think
it's
also
much
the
more.
Nicola nerf actually slowed down some of the
Oh
most
yeah,
like
for
Oh,
sure,
yeah, yeah.
dude. I haven't
most
seen
extreme
people
stuff.
run Nicola. Like I run it once today when I had like slow and steady just to scale, but that item, dude, that 1 second less charge makes it so hard to pick it at silver because at silver it doesn't do anything at silver right now. Like
Yeah, it feels unplayable at silver. I agree
yeah,
with you, but I also feel that it's like it was not
yeah,
even
it was
that
too
good
strong.
without shiny, but then
Yeah,
it was like unbelievable. Like the old version of Diamond Shiny
yeah.
was unbelievable, right? It was like one of the stupidest items in the
Well,
game
it was
because
also the fact that it was really strong in like Wrecking Ball specifically. Like when that
yes.
was Stealth's best archetype, Wrecking Ball disproportionately benefits from Nicola, whereas say a Swallowtail or a Roundabout, like these don't like Nicola doesn't really go in these boards. Like we don't care about when we have a 1 second.
Yeah, it mainly goes on Daggerwing now. That's the one that you really want shiny
Yeah, but
Nicola with
Sandbags is
still?
sort of better, right? Like Sandbags just does the
Yeah.
same job, but better. So basically, Nicola has kind of lost its home. But that's just, I think, a meta thing. I think if we see a resurgence in more stuff that cares about start time, so for example, Pill Buggy or Wrecking Ball, if those
Or a good
make like a
shout
big
out
comeback,
time for like Lava Roller in like next
yeah,
expansion maybe.
Yeah, maybe some
yeah,
of the maybe some of the mediums are like I mean you mentioned Pill Buggy, that makes sense to me. Like it makes sense
yeah,
that the medium package of like self destroy or whatever, those items their problem is like that their cooldowns are too long very often. Like they seem like they have cool effects, but a lot of them are
yeah.
just kind of slow, right? So
That's the thing.
Nicola
Like
definitely addresses that.
Swallowtail charges itself, and the runabout goes to 1 second. Like you don't
Right, yeah,
need
they don't make sense with Nicola,
acceleration.
and those are like the
Yeah,
premier things now.
yeah,
Whereas
exactly. So it's just a meta thing. I think Nicola can find its place in the future, but it's just funny. And it's the same with Freefall Simulator. People were arguing that was like Stealth's most busted item, and now I barely see it on ladder anymore. Like it just kind of because again, Ball Blast.
I still play free fall a lot, but I'm
Yeah, yeah.
also
I
like
mean, it's
I
still
favor
playable.
the balloon engine start
Yeah,
very
I'm not
much.
saying it's
So
like a bad item, but it's no longer like a meta-defining item the way it was in the
agreed,
past.
agreed.
You often can skip it now, so
And that's
it's
also
just
like hang glider toned down, right? So hang glider
yeah.
less
They
attractive
nerfed
relative to swallowtail and
yeah,
etc.
they nerfed the builds that benefited the most from free fall, and then just the fact that it's now hard, like hammers now started gold, means it's much harder to get like a diamond free fall on day 7, right? So I think it's interesting how items can just like if you nerf a certain build, you can make an item go from super strong to like obscure, like without even nerfing the item itself, which I think is really like it's the same with pulse rifle and railgun, right? Like they removed tech tag from pulse rifle because of anti-matter chamber, and then they like accidentally killed the railgun archetype somehow. Like it's just
Well, it's because if you expect an item to be less useful in the late game, you're less likely to buy it. But that has like a double effect, right? So not only is it work with less builds inherently in the late game, but also because it works with less builds, you're less likely to hedge it. So you have it less often, even when you do get to those builds. So even when you
yeah,
do end up in the build that wants free fall, you don't have free fall as often because you didn't buy it as often because that build is rarer. So
right.
it's like when you make stuff when you make a build in the late game less attractive, it makes all of the things that run up into that build, the whole path towards it, all of those things become less attractive options relative to what they're competing with, right? So that's kind of like the trickle down effect. I mean, that also describes the Nicola thing, right? Both Nicola and Freefall, they're the end game boards that they were part of are worse. So I'm
Yes.
less likely to buy them. And so I'm less likely to have them even when I would play them. So that's the second order effect that is like why you see that dramatic shift.
Yeah, and I think that's also hard to break. I don't think anyone just would look at, okay, Wrecking Ball was nerfed, that means that free fall is we're no longer clicking free fall. Like I think it just highlights how hard it can be to balance a game where if you nerf one item for one reason, that can just lead to so much other stuff, which I think is interesting. Like, I don't know, I think it just highlights how hard it is to make this game perfectly balanced. Because if you balance one thing, now three other things break. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
mean it's
where I'm going with
unintended
this.
consequences. It's it's complex systems. Like that's just the kind of the nature of it. The idea is that like we don't need perfect balance for the game to be enjoyable. And like we don't even if you could tell me right now, like if I was like a omniscient being and I could tell you if the game was or not perfectly balanced, you could point to the version that is perfectly balanced, quote unquote, and that might not be the most fun or best version of the Bazaar anyway. So like that that to me, like the pursuit of perfect balance is like secondary to the pursuit of like this feels compelling to do. It feels like all the characters have a chance. Like balance is all about perception at the end of the day because like what there's no like it's not like the government is going to come and like rate your game like balanced or unbalanced and then we're all going to quit because of their rating. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's just our perception of balance that is the balance. So as the players, what we feel is should be like that is what they should be pursuing, not like some platonic objective perfectly balanced game anyway. Like that, I think that's kind of a false goal to chase.
Yeah, and I guess we can probably move to
No, I
the
was gonna,
topic of the
before
week. Or do
we
you wanna?
move
Okay, go
on to
ahead.
the topic, I was just curious to have Classic chime in as well as kind of the highest ranked player, at least currently here. Have you been feeling the same way about like the meta more broadly, that it's become kind of very early mid game centric?
Yes. So, I mean, I had to change the way I play Mac just to match it. But yeah, I do agree that it's becoming more early and mid game centric. Like you can definitely just win earlier now, and you don't need an optimal board anymore if you can just win early. So that's nice to do, and that also benefits like the flex package. Uh, as long as
I'll
you have
I'll
enough
say I
tempo,
think
like
this
you
is
can
a
flex a lot
effect
of
of
stuff.
the enchanted item removal. It's easier
Yeah,
for stronger players to win
Mm.
days 1 and 2. So you're more incentivized to go for like a tempo line that wins in the early mid game.
yeah. I mean, also there's like a lot of new players who joined, so the pool might be easier than before because of the Steam release. But notably, on the point of balance, I think that every hero right now is very playable. Like I've seen people who are good at their respective heroes all having equal amounts of success. So I think we're in a pretty good spot in terms of that. But I did notice we didn't talk about Pig, and I think that Pig has some pretty crazy things going on that seem to be a little bit overlooked just because, I don't know, I guess some people don't like playing him that much.
Yeah, I
but
think-
notably, dog and textiles.
Yeah. It's
Well, I do
definitely
agree with you that dog is overly strong, but I do not think that textile is overly strong. And I'm like definitely like a pig player. Like I can tell you that those lines are not consistent the way the squares line is consistent. I don't even think that the money tree line is particularly consistent. It's like a very survivorship bias kind of thing. Where
Yeah,
you get
that's
completely
definitely
rocked in the
like
late game by money tree, but it's just like not pictured is the money trees who did not hit offensive enchant and just lost.
Yeah, that
So
one makes sense. But you don't think the textiles enables like a lot of infinites?
it definitely enables a ton of infinites, but like I don't see like can you tell me the hero that doesn't have infinites? Like I guess I just don't think that's like inherently a problem. Like the infinites it creates do not like kill particularly fast. Like for example, like Rice Ball or Sauna Textiles is like a 3-card combo that when you and first of all you need to have all your items stacked on value so Rice Baller has enough multicast. But even setting that aside, it doesn't like have inherent scaling or whatever. Like you still have to find something worthwhile to do with the charges. Like just putting like 20 or whatever it is, like 36 burn on them every second or whatever is not really like that isn't actually cutting it on like day 9 or whatever.
we can point out, like, just as a fun like piece of trivia, when we were testing the new version of textiles on the test server, there was actually one particular version that very consistently caused a lot of issues, which was when, with the old effect on hypergreens, you could just have an Adladdle be the kind of start trigger and then go infinite
Yeah, and
on
you had a 1 second
textiles.
like infinite. You had a 1 second start loop with that would like hit with a addle.
And
But like that
that
yeah.
was like consistently way too powerful. But the biggest thing that's changed now is just that Pig as a hero have so few items that are like disproportionately effective to loop that in practice a lot of the time it's boards with fort or gramophone that ends up being way scarier than any of the loops that you can realistically make, at least in most of your games, with the textiles.
Yeah, that's kind of my point is that like yeah, you can make an infinite that starts at 6 seconds or you can just hit them for 5,000 with Lion's Cane at 6 seconds. So
Yeah.
like which one is actually like the fact that it's like an infinite is like that's like like scary quote unquote, but like isn't like everything an infinite? Isn't it like trivial for Stell to assemble infinites with like paper airplane and sandbags and like isn't it like
Well, I do
can't all the
think like
characters
it
make like
is
charge loops?
fair to
Like
it's fair to have that concern, since it is why we had to nerf stuff like pendulum that clearly the data
yeah.
must have shown were causing a lot of issues. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the mindset of, oh, easy to assemble infinite is probably problematic. Like way more
Well, yeah,
often
but
than not,
is it
you're
that
gonna
easy
be
to
correct.
assemble? Is it
But
that easy to assemble relative to like the my point is not that like yeah, sure, infinites could be dangerous, but like is it actually easy to assemble relative to what the other heroes can assemble? Like I like that's the part that like I don't necessarily agree with that it's like quote unquote easy.
well, I think mainly in the sense of like, for most of the other heroes, there are very active measures being taken to make it harder for them to assemble any given infinite, which, like, in a vacuum would suggest that it would be reasonable to think that, oh, then we probably need to look at making this one harder for Pig as well. Where in practice, I agree with you that it isn't really a problem, but it's very easy to understand how it would take being a Pig player to be able to see that since intuitively, I think it seems like a thing that should be a problem. I remember that was my first immediate gut reaction was like, oh no, this seems like a really problematic item. And then, after a bit of playing against it and seeing other people play it for a while, it was like, oh, no, it really wasn't like
Yeah,
nearly as
I just think
bad
that
as I
so
thought it
much
was
of
gonna be.
the end game consists of charge loops, right? Like that's just normal. It's because it's like new, right? Like we just have like this idea like, oh yeah, sure, like I see a pig, they have model ship and yo-yo, or like that's a charge loop. Do you know, like, but
Yeah.
we don't think twice about that. Is that really much more difficult to
No, but that's
assemble
why
than
like that got heavily nerfed, right? So the argument is like if other things that look
yeah, but that was
similar
also
to
like
this get
way
nerfed,
stronger. Like
then
that had easy access to scaling from 28 and sharp. Like basically, like those loops, yes, they did get nerfed. But like the reason they got nerfed was not because they're infinite loops. It's because their output was too high. So
yeah,
my
yeah.
argument
No,
is
so
then that
I'm not
yeah,
agreeing with your like conclusion. I'm more just explaining
okay.
how I expect that this was a good thing to cover because I think it
Yeah,
would
fair
be a
enough, fair enough.
very common
You know, I'm
thing
so
to.
defensive about the
Yeah,
textiles thing, just because I feel like I put, Goose and I put so much work into making sure this card was balanced
yeah. Mhm. And
and like
you did like win me
yeah,
over on the test server. Like I'll
yeah.
be so honest, like in the when the item was revealed, I was actually in the DMs with Sixten being like, "Oh god, what have they done? They can't put this item out." He can confirm.
Yeah.
Um but then in
So
practice, like you
But
guys
like
put in
but
some
like, are you guys
serious
losing
effort.
to textiles all that often? That's
No,
my
no, no.
that's
So
like my ultimate
that's what I was
argument.
saying. Like
Yeah.
after all the serious testing you guys put in to show this is what causes problems with it, and this is what doesn't really cause problems with it, it was very convincing to me. Like
Because
you
the
did
original
some
version was like
serious
bronze
work.
starting and it
Yeah.
and the still had the old hyper green, so it was a level of
Oh, there was
consistency
also
that
a
doesn't have
version where it
exist now.
charged
Yeah.
all of your non-heal items, not just
That's true.
adjacents.
That's true too.
That one existed too.
Okay, that one was also true. Okay, yes, that's fair.
um, but yes, no,
I
that's
just want
a
to say
great
on
spot
the
to.
topic
Oh,
of
yeah.
pig, Goose father, so he has been fairly chatty about pig, and he thinks that pigs. The problem with pig is that if you hit the jackpot in the late game, your scaling reaches ridiculous numbers, which is a
Yeah.
problem for pig players too. Like the worst thing for Goose is when he's playing pig, and then he faces other pigs in the late game. Like that is like even for a pig player, it's annoying to face the pigs with
Yeah,
50k
because you
health and
Yeah,
like.
like
one of the only ways you lose as Crook is to
Yeah.
money tree, by the
Yeah.
way. Like
yeah.
that's
So what he's saying is he's all for that being tuned down, but he also just wants to make sure there's like compensation in the other direction, right? Like if you he agrees that Pig's late game is ridiculous when you hit the jackpot. It shouldn't be that ridiculous, but at the same time, Pig also has other issues right now. Like his early game, for example, is still a bit weaker than the other heroes. So I think I'm with him there, where I want to tune down the ridiculous stuff, but also make sure that Pig isn't like left behind. Because it's very
I would
easy.
say Pig is the one who's now the like bad item hero,
Yeah.
the one who has the most like useless stuff.
Yeah,
I
he
think
seems very lopsided.
there's a really good like analogy for what the issue becomes with Pygmalion so often, which is that the Bazaar is a game that heavily rewards getting over the line by the smallest possible margin. And there's just no reward for sometimes falling just barely short, and then other times completely blowing it out of the water. That's in fact basically the least advantageous thing you could be doing, because the time that you blow it out of the water will be equivalent to another person just barely getting over the line, but the time where you just barely fell short will give you way less than the time that the other person just barely got over the line. So that's been what's at least based on what I've been hearing from especially Goose's perspective, which I do think makes sense. It's a frequent, reoccurring Pygmalion issue that we've had multiple people mention, where like the issue is that even though your strong games look very convincing, the weak games are so punishing that it oftentimes seems to just make the most sense, at least if you're trying to climb or you care about rank or you care about efficiency, any of those things. If you're not just trying to make the most ridiculous combos, then you're probably better off playing a hero that will just consistently output 10s, even if they won't have those occasional boards that are just way more powerful.
Yeah, I will say that like I think the crook line or square, I actually prefer to call it squares now because I don't really think you even
Yeah, I've
need
been calling
crook.
it square for a while, especially
Yeah.
because it really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it's just a cooler name. I think for squares especially, like I think squares does maintain the pace of the game, quote unquote, meaning that like if you're an average square board for most of the game and you face against a mega high roll from another hero, you will lose. If you're money tree and you face a mega high roll from another hero and you hit obsidian, you might just win anyway. Like that's kind of the difference that I see, is that like squares is like on the power curve with other heroes builds. It's like in the same dimension, whereas like tree is like either below them because they missed or above them because they hit, and it's kind of like it's like an outlier in either direction, and it's quote unquote balanced in terms of win rate or something, because like in a certain sense, but in practicality it's like they either get rolled or they roll all their opponents because of the way obsidian works. um like I even think that it's actually just obsidian, by the way. I mean, I know this is kind of bleeding into maybe the topic, but poison,
Yeah,
money tree, and I mean fiery is good. The
it's the
other
same
ones
with
are not that scary. Yeah,
It's the same
is
with
what I'll say.
Runabout. When people post their win screens of Runabout or go like this item is so broken, 9 out of 10 times they have obsidian on it, and it makes sense. When it has obsidian on it, it's like a nuke that you drop in 3 seconds, and then your opponent is dead. But like I think obsidian is a recurring villain in so many builds where that enchant is so much stronger than the other damage enchants, and just double as a word is just really dangerous, I think. I'm not sure if this applies to Mac as much. I right now I can't think of any broken Obsidian Mac boards. Maybe Classy, do you have
No,
any
For
like
Fear is
the
good
those?
for
with
the longest
obsidian, but yeah.
while, yeah, I was gonna say, me and Walter like really ran the numbers on this, and Obsidian on Poppy Field would
Oh, yep, that one too.
outperform any other enchant by a very large margin in every theoretical scenario. Short fights, long fights, in between, rushing, out sustaining, scaling. It doesn't matter. The numbers would just crush in favor of Obsidian, no matter how you did them. So there are definitely a few like that on Mac too.
Yeah, Obsidian's still really good, for sure.
As for the pig thing, I just want to compare it to, so when I face pig in the late game, it reminds me so much of when we used to have enchanted item start, where you can argue, well, you should be happy they're playing enchanted item because on average, they will have weaker boards or something like that. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like on average, that is worse maybe than going
Yeah,
with
yeah,
income
yeah.
start.
Because the average enchanted item opponent is actually technically weaker. That's why we
Yeah,
think it's
something
a
like
worse
that.
start in
But
the
but
first place. Yeah, yeah.
the issue is if you're like top legend player and you're trying to win streak, like you're trying to get 10 wins every time, the problem with enchanted item start or the end game pigs that get their enchant is that they just win. Like there is no like especially on Stella, like on duel you can actually do some really disgusting stuff to get like just stun lock them basically. But for most heroes, it's just very hard to beat a 1 second multicast item that deals your damage 9 times over and then full heals them, right? Like it's just very hard to ever get under that, which just means that it doesn't feel like your decisions matter. Like the only thing that happened is you got unlucky with the ghosts here, and you just queued into people who have unstoppable builds.
I
And
think
it's kind of
that's
like, yeah. Go ahead.
relatively true even for a more average player, just in the sense that, sure, on average, you will beat more money tree players when they are weak than you will lose to money tree players when they are strong. But partially due to how the health as a resource works in the first place, a lot of the time that might not necessarily even be strictly better. But above that, more than anything, it just doesn't feel good. Like, the money
Yeah.
tree that I lose to will feel much more frustrating than the money tree that I beat.
And it will
which
also
was
be the
more like,
last thing
"Oh,
that
well,
happens in
whatever."
your run. It'll be what
Yeah,
you
yeah.
remember. That is the other part of it, right? It's just like saliency bias, right? The build that's unbeatable late is also the build that necessarily is beating everyone late. So
Yeah, yeah. So
it's
it can feel very frustrating. And
yeah,
I
it
will
feels
Yeah.
say,
super. It
like,
feels super oppressive, right?
I
And
don't
that's why I
know
wanted
if
to
it's just
distinction
like,
between tree and squares, because I actually don't
yeah,
think. I mean, I think squares is strong late, but I don't
No,
think
no.
it's like
Again,
Thanos like that late.
yeah.
I think the main issue currently is just money tree, and to a lesser extent, it's also belt. Like belt can just do pretty ridiculous stuff. Like getting, I had a opponent with 50k health on like day 12 or something, or day 11. Like it just, that kind of health, especially for Stell now that Wrecking Ball isn't really a thing. Like you, it's impossible to deal 50k damage in under 6 seconds on Stell. Like on day 11 or 12, like it just, like you would need every skillet diamond, every item on your board obsidian, and then like icy and shot. Like it's just, you just cannot deal that much damage in under 6 seconds before the cane goes off, and you don't have perma freeze either. So it's just the feeling that there was no way for me on Stell here to actually beat this build. Like I could high roll every enchant, I would still lose here, and that's something that is unique to this current like late game pig. I don't feel that way when I face Mac. I don't feel that way against Vanessa.
Specifically,
Like
not unique to
yeah.
this late game pig, as in the sense of that we haven't seen late game pig do this before. Just more like right now, pig is the character that does that.
Yeah, like we have had this in the past with like there has been unstoppable duelists, there have been unstoppable like every hero has at some point in history
Yeah,
had
there's
like
like
unstoppable
permafreeze
builds.
Mac and stuff like stuff
Yeah,
that you
Yeah,
felt like you had
this
no
isn't
chance against.
anything new, but this meta feels so balanced otherwise that it stands out like even more now because everything else feels so much more
and
like
especially like
yeah.
anytime it's been the case, it's generally not been super fun. So I don't think it's a hot take to be like, it's kind of cooler when that isn't the case.
Yeah, I just like when it feels like me and the opponent are like racing to win. Like it feels like even if one of us are stronger, it's still like, yeah, he dealt like half my health or he dealt 2/3. It was still like a fight. Whereas these late game blowouts are just like you're looking at the wall, but the wall also like just kills you in 5 seconds.
Also
So you can't
think,
even. Yeah, go ahead.
at least for me, and this is very subjective, not everyone's gonna agree, but I feel less frustrated when what I lose to is a combo than when it is not. And not necessarily in the sense of like, oh, it was an interesting combo or a cool combo, or like I had a game where I lost to double money tree pig, where they had like a poison money tree and then an obsidian money tree, and then they had the skill where like when you heal, you charge a poison item, and they had like Counter Strike and like two more charge skills. So it was like mega checkmate. But that time, I didn't get so upset because I could instantly recognize that it didn't have to be money tree at all. If you have those kinds of skills with something that's very powerful when charged, you're gonna wreck me regardless. And in that sense, it's very similar to like when I lose to Keg before, when I lose to Boulder, when I lose to Anchor, even this like really powerful late game stuff, to an extent, Wrecking Ball and Dagger Wing, and obviously the bigger issue with Wrecking Ball was that it was stronger than it should have been, but I didn't find it that frustrating to lose to, because a one-shot combo feels like what you should be losing to if it's very late in the game. But I do feel frustrated when it's just a raw money tree with obsidian and like tents, and they aren't doing anything else in particular. They just put the 2 items on their board, and the numbers on them are so big that I can't beat them for that reason and that reason alone. That's usually when I start to be like, that irks me a little bit.
Yeah, and it was sort of the same when I faced the health stacking pigs, where they would all like just their health bar alone would be like, okay, that's really impressive. Like you have 10 times my health. That is gonna be like I might not even in the sandstorm be able to kill you. But then on top of that, you add tents, you add, a cane that goes off in 6 seconds and deals more damage than my, skyliner that I have obsidian on, and like my entire board, and like all my skills, all my other items are dedicated to making my skyliner as strong as possible. And then your cane that you just put on the board just automatically scales with your already super high health, right? Like, so you're already beating me tenfold with your health. And then on top of that, you have this super fast weapon that just out DPSs the thing I have, built my entire board around. It just feels like impossible when like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
Again,
I
it's
will
not like
say,
it
like-
is impossible, but it's also like on some level, like Stell's core struggle for her entire character is that she lacks damage scaling.
Yeah.
That's her
Yeah,
that's
sure.
her core weakness, and having 1,000,000 HP is the counter to that weakness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
but
I
I'm
don't-
saying
I
if
don't usually
the
feel
health alone I
bad
could
when I
race against,
lose to
but
just the
go
health,
ahead.
but I want to make a point to just like for so that it doesn't sound like we're only ragging on Pig. I think this issue is more common on Pygmalion, but I felt just as frustrated losing to Julian Eels on Vanessa during that meta. So I think the key villain is just meta scaling items that can get numbers so big that they invalidate anything the other player is doing.
And I want to point out that I think that the one of the big culprits besides just Obsidian, there's two things going on. One is the Pig unique event investment opportunity, which doubles the value of an item. This is like it's like the equivalent of like Dooley's Workshop or whatever. Like it's about that rare, so you might get it once every other game, or maybe like once every 3 games or something like that. So that's about as common as it is. When you get this event with one of the property scaling things, it's usually just GG. Like you just win, and I think that it's such a weird event because it's super good. Like it's balanced in the sense that other characters have the same event, like except for Mac, but um, it's like you can pick 4 XP, which is kind of equivalent to like the value of like Dooley 10% HP plus core upgrade, or like there's some equivalency there, but the amount of value that the like property value stacking builds gets out of this node is way, way, way more than 4 XP. They're typically doubling their output straight up. Like they're increasing their effectiveness by 100% when they hit this node. And I think that option should probably just be like your leftmost item gains 40 value or something instead of double, because the double is just so crazy. So I think that that's one of the big, and it's like that is totally hidden to non-Pig players, right? If you've never played Pig, you might not even know that this event exists.
This is the first time I heard about it. I didn't know about that.
Okay. Yeah, so like this is it's like you get 4 options like the dually one or whatever, and one of them is double the value of your leftmost item. And this is why like you see such crazy numbers sometimes. It's because of that, and because of master salesman and just these doubling effects. So I think changing that option to just like a flat value number would be like a big way to like tone down the highest of high rolls, because I think that like the way to deal with the money tree thing is to go after the stuff that's making it like so much of an outlier when it works. Like I think that if it was more in line with other stuff, it would win almost as often. It just wouldn't feel so like if you played against Obsidian Money Tree and the typical Obsidian Money Tree fight was like you went back and forth with them for 15 or 20 seconds while they healed and hit you, and you were like shielding and hitting them back, and you were actually like fighting a scaling battle, that would feel like way less BS, right?
Yes. Even if you
Yeah.
lost, like, yeah.
So like it's just a function of making it so that like the money trees in the late game are closer to that numbers wise, and that means going after like these doubling effects or whatever. So I mean, the other one obviously is like Master Salesman, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to do about that one. It's already harder to get. It's quite difficult to get.
Yeah,
right?
they did do a good work on, like, I think at this point that one is sufficiently difficult to get, since like it's a harder fight that has more skills on a day where they also added a bunch of new.
Yeah, it's way
fights.
rarer to see him as a opponent. That's like the
Yeah,
key
yeah.
thing that made it rarer, right? Is you get stupid whatever primordial or whatever every time.
Yeah. But before
I
we
do.
move on to the topic of the week, just for fun, Classy, do you have a particular like pain point, just entirely subjectively? It doesn't need to be based on logic at all, with like builds that especially grind your gears to lose to?
I mean, I tend to play builds that are like spammy-ish, so I guess like eels or caltrops would be annoying for me to play against.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think in general, what I would be annoyed about would just be like, yeah, like the Exodia, like you die in 1 second, basically. Especially when you're like on 1 HP and that happens to you, it just doesn't very good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. And for the topic of the week, we thought it would be interesting to discuss. We've kind of hinted at it earlier, but the game right now is really good for playing flexible, for having like a flex play style. And Classy here, of course, is one of the main promoters of playing the game exactly that way. And previously in the past, so has me and Walter been. It's a very fun style of playing the game. But yeah, perfect time to just go more in depth on it. So the most fitting way of starting it off, I think, would be if Classy, you have this wonderful guide that I will link in the description of the podcast as well, which just covers playing Flex on Mac specifically, and also your background coming from Teamfight Tactics. But I'll let you introduce it yourself. Why don't you describe what the Flex play style is to you and how you came to play it that way?
Yeah, so I did steal this idea from Teamfight Tactics, but basically in that game, where you have to assemble a board uh, and a composition of different units with all of their, different traits and stuff. Playing a flex game just means like taking a versatile approach and kind of always keeping your options open when you're playing. So in the early game, you would want to pick cards that are like, universal and could fit in different boards. So like I said earlier today, starting with the red items allows you to fit in potions pretty easily. So easy to put in potions for a carpet board with like flying potion and the bottled lightning. And it's easy to put in potions with like refractor as well, with like rainbow potion and such. So just holding on to pieces that are like going to see use later is a great way to keep your economy up because you're basically saving money. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like trying to promote the flying potion boiling flask stuff right now. It's like pretty easy to find them. Boiling flask is kind of hard, but if you do, it just works in so many boards. And that's just like an example of a flex mentality.
Yeah. I think what like we've sort of hinted at it previously when we talked about it, but what is it that you think make playing with this sort of flex mentality so strong right now in particular?
Yeah, so I think it's important to do that now, and it will be important in the future too, because there are just more and more cards being added to the game. So eventually it'll be very hard to look at a specific build you want to play and just play that for a run. That's something that Raynad mentioned as well. Like he wants the game to focus on playing flexibly and like adapting to whatever you get throughout the run. So yeah, I think it'll be even more important in the future.
Can I just ask actually, like, this idea of flex, like, because to me that it means a couple different things, right? Like, would you say it's flex when, like, if the way I'm playing Stella right now, right? Like, I feel like I have 3 early game lines that I feel like I am comfortable assembling boards with, and then like I'm willing to quote unquote flex into all sorts of builds from there. But on the other hand, like I'm very loath to go away from my like 3 starting lines. Do you know? Like I really feel that if you do that, I'm likely giving up a lot of win percentage or whatever to do something other than like play a board that's built around either turret or balloon engine or molten ball blaster. So like I'm curious as to like when you say flex, you're still feeling like you. I know it's like not so cut and dry. I mean, Mac has candles and some other like early game boards like Refractor or whatever. But do you feel like it's so cut and dry that you wouldn't stray from kind of like your early game plans, but you still consider that like a flex approach?
Yeah, I think it's totally fine to have a few different like options that you
Okay.
prefer in the early game. I also have something like that as well, like with the weapons and stuff. But I
Yeah,
think
you just have
what's
some
important.
packages, right? That you're
Yeah,
comfortable like knowing this is strong on these days,
exactly.
and then like I can move into whatever. Okay,
Yeah, as long as you don't have just like one, then you're good.
gotcha.
I also do think it's a very big deal. Like, I feel like something that oftentimes get overlooked when discussing what's strong or what's weak early game, or rather what you actually go for in practice, is like it doesn't just matter to go for the strongest thing in a vacuum, but such a key part of the flex play style is changing what you go for based on, in any given meta, on any given patch, what is actually going to have a good variety of other things that it leads into. And I think the most like illustrative example of this is if you're playing Vanessa and Shark Claws is a good item, but everything that's powerful on Vanessa in the mid game or onwards is just aquatic stuff. You might be baiting yourself a little bit if you go just for aquatic stuff, for just for weapons. If you go for like red ammo weapons that don't translate into the aquatic stuff at all, then that might be pretty bad expected value. Like you're likely to have a tough time being flexible with the builds that you want. While on the other hand, when weapons started including a lot of stuff like they made the narwhal much better. They made the Sawarzid, which is also a weapon, and then of course the shark claws themselves are technically aquatic. The more overlap there became, the more realistic it was to have that transition on Vanessa where you converted from having weapons as your start to still being able to be open to stuff like primordial depth charge or having that haste ammo overlap to be able to also go for arbalest or things like that and not just be stuck in one specific build. Which I think you talked about that in the context of Mac, right? Where you're less inclined to go for self poison because it gives you less opportunities to be flexible with which builds you want to choose later on, compared to Refractor and Carpet, which are already so naturally potion adjacent.
Yes, so I think self poison is flexible as long as you get those two medium items. From there are a lot of different payoffs because just having the two self poison items will not kill your opponent fast enough. Um, and I'm just talking about a rapid injection system and adrenal converter. Sometimes you can use like the Cobor or something like that, but most of the time, if you don't find these two medium items, it's kind of hard to play the build. So it's flexible after you get them, I would say. But most of the time, you don't get them early enough because they both start at silver. So that's usually why I try not to play it as much now.
Yeah. I think that's been something that's very noteworthy on Stella as well, where I honestly think the just raw Karakara weapon line in the early game is still pretty consistently strong when you just go for like gyro and Karakara, and you have like rocket drone, and you have these things that just rush down the opponent very quickly. And a lot of the time, that can even arguably be stronger than an aerial turret on very early days. But the big difference is that while aerial turret might still use a Karakara potentially, um, it also is very happy to pick up stuff like balloon engine or kite or free fall or tethers, depending on which particular setup you've gone for. But it creates this natural convergence where you're picking up things that enable multiple branching paths, make it easier for you to do the quest on the orbital polisher. Just a lot of stuff like that, which means that you'll naturally have more opportunities down the line than if you'd picked a more insular build that just doesn't like doing that kind of conversion.
Yeah, agreed.
I will also say, I think I've been talking a lot to Sixten about this, and one of the most interesting discoveries, in my opinion, that I've been having on Stell lately, because for the longest time, like I'm fairly well known for being a little bit of a anti Molten Ball Blaster advocate. I was just very unconvinced by that item, especially in the sense that I felt like it was way too insular relative to its power. I felt like balloon engine aerial turret can get me just as many wins in the early game, but then they have way better conversion points. But I think as we've gotten better and better at playing style and found more and more boards that work, I've been very impressed with how flexible her tool lines really can be in terms of turning into other lines, even if you initially start off with that Molten Ball Blaster. I think one of the best examples of this is the Stellar Swallowtail, which scales off of haste, because tools actually have two very natural ways of ending up haste adjacent, where if you just have either calipers or low rollers, it's very easy to have enough haste to support a Stellar Swallowtail. But at the same time, if you run tools, it's very easy to pick up torch, it's very easy to pick up flare gun, it's very easy to hedge a magma core, and then all of a sudden you can totally end up in this scenario where you're running low roller swallowtail, maybe even with duplicated flare guns from a toolbox or something, and it turns into one of the best possible swallowtail boards, even though you started in tools rather than flying stuff. And that's
Yeah.
what I've been very impressed with, especially also when it comes to enchants on Hangar and Workshop. Stuff like Slow really enables you to just pivot tools right into slow builds as well. But Sixten,
And you can also do like all these loops with workshop or Hanger and like shiny paper airplane plus rivet gun, like flare gun. Like there's actually so many of these like tool setups that can give you like a charge loop that's going into a rivet gun. That there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. Right, you can do it with sandbags. You could with Stella's workshop, or you can do it with Hanger, and you could do it
Yeah.
with like low
Yeah.
roller or paper airplane, or like there's actually like probably a ton of different. If you like went and figured out all the different iterations and all the different possible setups, there's actually a ton of them.
It's so
And
Yeah, and
deceptive how
also
it seems like
it
it would be so insular, and then it just isn't at all.
no, because you can charge anything with them, right? They're
Yeah.
so small in terms of board space that you can actually like you can put them into Swallowtail. Like that's a great option, as you pointed out. But like your payoff can be a whole bunch of things, including the Molten Ball Blaster itself if you're tempoing out. So
most importantly, it's also a really cheap build to play because you're already incentivized to buy toolbox when you're playing Molten Ball
Yeah.
Blaster since it provides you with small tools. Then you have the level up option that gives you a bunch of gold per tool you have. And then just playing tools is fairly cheap because it's not about having the most expensive or exclusive tools. You just want small, fast tools. And those cost like 2 gold. Like you don't need a gold angle grinder drone to play tools. You can just have a bronze one, which just means that you, unlike when you're playing a super expensive stop start setup and you need like an anemometer to get stuff going, like you get to save a lot of gold that you then can use to just flat out buy like 2 gold. Like I've frequently spent 48 gold on like day 6 or 7 because I have that much gold from the tools generating all the cash. Whereas if I'm playing stop start, I might have to sell half my board to finance a large item because that archetype doesn't give you infinite gold because you can't afford to hedge a toolbox because it doesn't help with your current board, and then you are really hungry for upgrades, like your balloon engine requires a ton of upgrades. You probably want to spend the extra gold to give extra burn to it. Like it's
yeah, you want free fall upgraded, you want
yeah,
goggles upgraded,
I
you
find
want everything. Yeah, yeah.
stop start is just a lot more expensive to play. So I've come to the conclusion that the upside of stop start is that you can complete your polishers and you can stall PV fights and you can basically play anything you want. But tools can do all of that minus the stalling, except you also have like 50 more gold and you can play Swallowtail with small. So I feel like right now I favor tools higher than stop start, and that's also partly because Balloon Engine got super nerfed. Like that item just on its own can no longer win fights for you. Like it used to be able to just burn them pretty nicely, but now with 2 burn and then 4 at silver, you just can't rely on balloon like
I'm still
ball
having really
blaster.
good results early game with Balloon Engine
I
with
mean, sure.
especially with tethers is
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
card that's
Okay, yeah.
been
No, no.
my
The tether.
mirror
Yeah, yeah.
breaker.
You're winning because of the tether. Like my point is,
Yeah.
you now need before, if you had like a bad start, you could still just win with a balloon engine. Now you need like a tethers or a bird cage or a parachute to actually win. Like you
Or
cannot just win
especially
with a
like to if you find like a skill for it or manage to put some early like cinders on it, then it's
Yeah,
back
a
to
bunch of flat
pre-nerf.
burn is also
So
still
it's
good. Yeah, yeah.
definitely
yeah. I'm just saying
I think
it's more
the
steps now than before.
yeah, and the
Like
key
it's
the
weaker.
key to the flex play style feels like it's very much just the fact that while it is true that there are like I think it's more important like we're still gonna go free fall balloon engine stuff when there's like a really good angle for it, but it's just also good to know that it actually feels kind of like I can go for tools and I won't just get stuck into them, because it just gives
Yeah.
us more options where all you really need to do is, well, then in the early game, look at which one you found. And if you have an amazing, like, free fall balloon type setup, then just go for it. It's gonna do amazing. And if you don't, then go for something else.
Yeah, go
And I
for
think,
turret or tools. But
yeah.
I think that also on the test server, we knew the power of turret. We knew the power of balloon engine, but we didn't quite understand the power of the late game tool boards at all. And
It's
I
definitely
didn't
like,
see.
and especially it was very obfuscated by the fact that many of the large flying stuff were so much more powerful initially
Yeah,
that it was like you realistically just wanted to force, like Skyliner was faster and dealt more damage, Daggerwing had 50% more scaling, just a lot of stuff like that meant that realistically, even though you won't get stuck in tools, it's better to just go something that immediately
Yeah,
leans into these builds that were like so
on the
powerful.
test server, it wasn't that we didn't discover the tool lines. They just weren't strong. Like they haven't been
it was
necessarily
a relative
buffed.
power problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the old Skyliner with 8-second cooldown and even more damage. Like that just you cannot like you cannot compete with
And
you know what I mean? Like
especially
tools just couldn't
when
compete.
they came online on day 5, not day 6.
Yeah, it was a different meta basically. It was a different patch altogether. But at the same time, and the one thing I will admit though is I think that even in that meta, Wrecking Ball would have been strong. I think it's mostly just because we got them on day 5. There was never a need to play Wrecking Ball. Like if you get a Skyliner on day 5,
We also
like why would you ever?
only
ahead.
had Shiny Hammer for like a few days before it hit live,
Oh
I
yeah,
think. So,
right.
that's
No, we couldn't
big part
even.
of the
No,
blind
no.
spot.
So I guess we can reveal like we moved over to the PTR server, and on that server we couldn't play Stell because she cost
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
right? So I couldn't play Stell for the last 48 hours, which is why I said like I'm not to blame for like those
Yeah,
last
so
minute
we
changes.
did
I
have a
couldn't.
few
Yeah,
like stuff that were in blind spots, but I especially do just think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B, where the tools were definitely weaker, but then I do also think that the lines that have, for me, made the stocks of like tools go up the most were some of the least intuitive stuff that we probably wouldn't have been that likely to figure out regardless, with like, running tools
Yeah, I
with
was not rating
swallowtail
low
or...
roller at all on test server.
Yeah,
But I'll
yeah.
put
yeah.
that out there, right? Like, so there's just some
No, wait,
cards
okay.
that
I just
I
want to
just
say
didn't know about.
for the record, Low Roller was one of the items I remember, like either on the last podcast or one before. I wanted you to put it up on the screen, and I was like, I think Low Roller looks really strong. Like I don't know if you guys remember, but
Yeah, we were basically
I had a
saying
hunch.
that it felt like an item that had a lot of tags, but because Stella had such good access to haste, at that point in time, we'd yet to find anything with it that looked like super
Yeah,
convincing. So it was in this very good state of like, this is clearly a strong item, but at the same time, it doesn't seem better than anything else we're
yeah.
doing.
I
We
think I
wonder
phrased
where
it
we can like fit it
as
in.
it's a turbo pulse rifle that doesn't deal damage, which is
Mhm.
completely broken. And I mean, and that is what it is. And now it's being played everywhere because people figured out how to optimize it. Like, I think
No one's
if you
ever
just look at the
underestimated a
stats.
multicast card before. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah,
We're the
that
first
would
ones to ever do it.
never
Don't
happen.
worry.
Anyway, I think could we were also gonna shoot. I feel like there was something else we were gonna talk about during the topic here. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, classes. So we're gonna talk about like when you play in tournaments, like what is your mentality? I guess it's kind of semi-related to the topic here. Right? Do you play with the flex mentality during the tournaments, or what was like your strategy? I guess. If that
Oh,
makes sense.
depends on which one, because the first one had different rules. But
Yeah,
I think,
assuming the unique item rule, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with that one.
yeah, so, well, first of all, you probably would want to play 3 different heroes, or maybe 2. I think trying to like play completely unique boards on one hero is gonna be a little hard, because sometimes the game just gives you like, it just doesn't give you the items for the other builds. So I'd rather just try to split up my heroes a little bit, and that like relieves a lot of pressure, right? Because you can play the best things you get. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
any of the pivoting. But I did play the same hero 3 times in the last tournament. And what I mainly did was just like try to plan out what were like the best Stell builds, and try to plan out like what items I could use as replacements. So for example, Wrecking Ball was still at full power last tournament, so I knew I was going to play that, and in order to play that, I would need to use like the free fall, and I needed to make sure to try to not reuse that item. So for my hang glider game in game 2, I was like removing a lot of the small start stop items and only keeping things that I know would like not be used later. So like paper airplane, coin, and maybe like a pogo stick, I remember. So that's just like some general advice for this format. But in general, I'm not going to shy away from like playing different heroes because sometimes I feel like that's necessary. But for this tournament, I was going to play Mac just to have some representation, to be honest.
So my idea for what the strategy should be is that I think this is kind of what I was planning on doing. Is like I was gonna play Pig and Stell, and I was gonna play a Stell game, and then I was gonna play a Pig game, and then I was gonna decide which board that I had was easier to dodge on the next run. And then like play the third game on one of those two based on which of my previous boards was like easier to stay away from.
Yeah,
And I think that
makes a lot of
that
sense. Like, you're basically saying that if you know that you have a board on stealth, for example, like you might end up, oh, my final board was Balloon Engine Dragon's Heart. You can pretty confidently say, I don't think I'm gonna have a hard time not accidentally ending up in Balloon
yeah,
Engine Dragon's
exactly.
Heart
I
for a
could just
second
not
game.
go, but I have enough options to do something else, or I'm
Yeah,
confident I
yeah.
could do something else. Yeah. Whereas if I play Pig and my first board is like Crook, Addle, Call, like I'm much less likely to want to play a second Pig game
Yeah, yeah.
if my
That makes
most
sense.
common line is all
Yeah.
taken up.
Mhm.
So
My strategy was gonna be 2 stealth games and then I reassess on the third. But my goal was to make sure I at least like there are like 2 tiebreakers. So my first goal is just make sure you get 3-10 wins to begin with, so you don't like fool around and go for
Yeah,
gimmicky things. Just make sure you have 2 rounds that get 10 wins, and then if those look really clean, on the third one you can reassess how much prestige, or sorry, not prestige, how much uniqueness score can I get here. But I think on the first run you should just play your strongest run. Like just make sure you get a 10 win for mentality. And then on the second run you can decide, okay, let's see what happens here, but I probably still play the same hero. And then the third is, okay, did I have 2 great stealth runs? Do I have a shot at winning this? Then I'm gonna probably go with like Dooley or whatever, just to ensure I can get the uniqueness. If I was struggling, I might just go Stella again, right? Just to make sure I at least get 3-10 wins. But yeah, I think I like the format a lot. I feel like there are so many ways to go about it. Goose, for example, did the opposite. He wanted to make the runs easier. So he wanted to like start off with a really hard build, and then you can kind of coast on the last 2 and feel like you did the hard work initially instead of the third run being like the hardest. So I think there are like, it depends on what kind of person you are. But yeah, just I guess we can also just discuss tournaments in the future. I think, Class, you brought up the idea of community run tournaments, sort of. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So I mean, the way that the Bazaar team is doing it now is they're like checking your runs like in the game itself, in the game data. So it makes it a lot easier to verify. But obviously, if the community is running a tournament, they can't do that. So something that a server of friends of mine does for tournaments is we make people take screenshots of their ranked like when you go into your profile in the game, it shows like how many runs you have on each hero.
Oh.
So if you screenshot that, you do your runs, you send like each of the runs results, then you screenshot that page again. It like basically verifies that you played the games in ranked and that amount of games because you can just see the difference between.
I usually send a picture me standing next to the screen holding today's newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that would unfortunately require me to own a newspaper.
Okay, sure. It's a bit of a dated reference. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's a good one.
But yeah, I mean, I think the community could definitely run some tournaments.
Yeah, and I
We
think
might have to actually because
yeah, I think one of the
yeah.
one of the very obvious ones, of course, is that in the very first tournament that Greg hosted for us, he made it so that if you have a 10-win run, you have to go in a Discord call with one of the tournament administrators and show you clicking past the confirm screen at the end of your run, because obviously that is significantly, like, orders of magnitude harder to easily fake compared to just a screenshot or something that could have been prepared in advance. So that's definitely, like, if there is a reasonable proportion between the amount of participants relative to the number of people administrating the tournament itself, then I could see how that's probably a very feasible solution to use as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they figured out how to do it using the game. The second didn't have to verify at all, and it was so much smoother. I mean, like
I believe that they
they
said from the get-go on the first one, they always had that technology ready to go, and the only reason they didn't use it in the very first one was because they actually wanted to provide a real example of an easier way for the community to host as the very first one.
okay. I think I just didn't understand that the
Yeah.
first time.
No,
Maybe
so
yeah.
it was very explicitly done with the purpose of demonstrating this is how you could do it without having access to tempo tech. And then for the second one, they just said, okay, this is what it looks like if you are tempo and you're hosting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and of course, they're recently adding like exclusive skins as the prize, which is a very good motivator for people to join. So the
Yeah.
last tournament was actually very competitive. Like if you didn't
Mhm.
get 310 wins and didn't have their uniqueness, you were basically not even in like the top 10.
Yeah. It's like you were, I think, around top 20, 15, 20 is when you started seeing people with, like, you'd still need like a uniqueness score of like maybe 26, 27 to be anywhere near the top, but um top 15 was probably like all there it is.
The funniest thing was there were a lot
Yeah.
of people celebrating that they thought they had won because they had 30 uniqueness, and they were like, "Yeah,
Yes,
surely,
yes.
oh yeah." And then the like Chinese players at the top, and they more people trickled in like in the last hour or like 45 minutes. So there were so many like premature celebrations about, oh, I'm top 3 easily. Oh my god, I'm gonna get a skin here. And then you see the guy with like 57 prestige, and you're like,
I mean, I thought I
like
got second in
yeah.
the very first tournament, and then I ended up getting 7th because there
Yeah,
was like it was like I thought literally I was in a or like yeah I thought I was like in position
yeah. I
to
mean,
be
Classy
like
wasn't.
really
I think
close.
it was the same for because you finished before Snacer. Am I right? Like on the first tournament, or was Snacer? Did he finish? Do you
Yeah, I think
remember?
for him, I had 59.
Yeah, right. So you were like, oh, this is that is gonna be very hard to beat, and then he comes along just last minute, gets because he what Snacer did in the first tournament is like just jam as many games as possible. So he had a lot of data to choose from. I guess.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, he
go
just
ahead.
needed 3 perfects basically, and he
Yeah.
got it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
was the correct strategy for the first tournament rule set. It was just play as many games as possible. Like
Yeah,
that
which
actually
also
is the smartest thing to do for
favors
that one.
certain heroes more than others.
Yeah,
Like I feel
for
like
sure.
Pig is not the right hero for that kind of play style,
I mean,
probably.
I still did 2 perfects in 4.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
still
but
pretty
like
good.
you had to like I watched when you played, and it was like a struggle bus on a couple of them. You had to perform miracles in the early game to get like wins. Just tempo King Silk, whereas Snacer can just play
Yeah,
Dooley, which is kind of already playing that style. So yeah, I don't know. I think I like the uniqueness tiebreaker more
I
overall.
agree. I also like it. Yeah.
I think that's more strategic depth and makes all heroes feel sort of viable, although the time limit thing is also like an issue that might be solved in the future. Like 3 hours for 3 runs is kind of hard for some people, especially if it's like in the middle of your whatever, like you're making dinner, you're getting home from work. It's gonna be really hard to like make that happen, in 3 hours.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I mean,
go
the
on.
second tiebreaker is also nice. It's not even prestige based anymore. It's just like how many losses. you have. So if you take like a big loss,
Oh yeah.
it's not like too bad.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah, prestige is
gotcha.
the third tiebreaker, right? Like it's
Yes.
yeah, okay.
That's good.
I like that a lot too. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I always sort of dislike that some losses matter more than others, because that kind of, like, some heroes just happen to be stronger on certain days, so you have less control over, like, I don't know. I prefer losses over prestige, I think, when it comes to that kind of stuff, as well. Because, like, you can have the most flawless 9-0 run, you're just playing perfectly. Then on day 10, you get some crazy high roller, and now your prestige is, ruined. Compared
Yeah.
to the guy that lost, like, day 1 and day 2, and then he recovered eventually, but, like, you lost fewer games, but you have a lot less prestige. So I don't know. I like the current tiebreaker for that reason. Do we have anything else to add on this topic, or are we feeling?
No, I think we covered it
Yeah.
it pretty well. I mean, I am definitely excited for more tournaments in the future. I'll just put that out
Me
there.
too.
Like I think
Mhm.
that is, if the game has a bright future, that tournaments are part of it. That I'll put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they did some lands as well in like Asia, like
Yeah, I saw that.
prizes and stuff. That would be really cool to attend.
Okay, so do we have a board of the week for this
We
week, Bazaar?
absolutely do, actually. Let me bring it up. Let's see.
Is it a classy board or is it a viewer?
No, I do
submitted?
have some viewer submitted boards
Okay.
of the week. 2 of them, actually.
I actually love the viewer submitted. Like, some of them are the most disgusting high rolls. Some of them are just like some of them are really cool. Some of them are just like, oh, you fucker!
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, how did you get this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see
so
it, let's
these
see it.
were submitted to me by Waggy Pants about 3 days ago. And we have, it's 2 Stella boards. The first one, let's actually go over to this. Here we go. Is a very interesting Obsidian Balloon Engine Diamond Pogo Dragonheart board.
Okay, I really like this one actually. I love Pogo Stick. It's one of my absolute favorite cards. This is like Square Stell with Pogo Stick and Free Fall. I love this build.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I've been kind of impressed with, like, I watched Ragnar the other day play Pogo Stick with Crane on Style, and I was a little bit shocked, honestly, at if you just have, like, Flare and Ornithopter on a Pogo Stick, it turns into like a very respectable amount of charge for any item of your choice. Since the Pogo, obviously the Ornithopter makes the Pogo start flying, which brings it down to a 1-second cooldown. But then when it activates and stops flying, it won't just charge the item you're targeting, it'll also charge the Ornithopter, making the Ornithopter make it fly again. And so you have this like cycle of always keeping the pogo stick basically only stopping itself. Which I will mention that is another reason why 1 second flat reduction on Ornithopter is, at least in my... I suspect it may not be long for the world, but as of right now, while it's in the game, you can do some crazy stuff with it, and that is one of them. But
I
this,
like Ornithopter.
yeah, this does a very similar thing, right? Where you have permanent haste on both the free fall and the pogo, but the pogo is constantly charging the free fall to further facilitate its own cycling.
Yeah, the setup of Pogo next to Free Fall, whether or not you have the Ornithopter, it's just I had it in conjunction with the like on a balloon engine board with the whenever the monster skill, whenever you burn, charge a shield item,
Yeah.
and the pogo stick and the diamond pogo stick is absolutely just going ape shit And like this card is actually like, if you have the right setup for it, it's kind of crazy. It's in some ways it's a bit like textiles, right? It's like an adjacent charger.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of put, I mean, you usually want free fall on one side of it, but like what you put on the other side is kind of like sky's the limit a little bit. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely an opportunity to get creative.
So that's definitely like an item that I wasn't expecting to have as much potential as it does. That's shoutouts to Pogo's Day. They also submitted this second run where I felt like it was beautiful. It's art. The fact that now they have Draconic Rage instead.
Oh my god.
So
That's a disgusting board.
Yeah, almost back to back. They submitted to me Pogo Stick with Heart, followed by
Just get Launchpad
this.
on Stell, easy.
Yeah.
No problem. Just get Obsidian Launchpad, easy game.
Yeah, and Obsidian Aerial Turret with
Yeah.
with a Fiery Swallowtail and
Dude.
Draconic Rage. It's
How
just
do these
normal
people
stuff.
get 3 enchants before, like, on day 10 with a perfect win?
Oh, 3?
What the
You
hell?
think there's 3? That's a Radiant
that's a-
Anemone.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
a,
Thank
oh
you
my
very
god,
much.
dude, what the hell? Give me this client. I'm struggling to get a single damage enchant ever. What the hell is this, man? That's not okay.
So normal day 10 things. It's just a completely average board, but it was very
Yeah.
thematically fitting.
And the vehicle skill too, by the way. Just in case
Yeah.
you weren't totally
and
dumpstering your
burn
opponent.
crit too. Just really
Yeah, Vent Tracer Fire. Yeah,
have
we got
your
the whole
bases covered.
Okay.
And of course, they have the burning enchant on
Yeah,
Swallowtail, so they can
Yeah.
do the almost infinite thing if they want to later.
So yeah, I thought they were some. It was just generally good boards, but the best part was, of course, the kind of synergy between the two.
I mean, this one's falling in the disgusting high roll category.
Yeah, the most
for me.
disgusting part is
The
you could
first one I
remove
really
the
liked.
skills and this board is still disgusting. Like, just the enchants alone are disgusting here. So anyway,
Yes, very cool,
Cool stuff.
very good, nice boards of the week. And with all that said, we can do some socials as well. So, Classy, where can people find more of you?
So there's 2 main places, but it's the same username for both. It's Classy and then ATO after. So Classiato, I guess, because someone took the original name. So if you go on Twitch and you search that, or if you go on YouTube and you search that, you can find me there. And I'll do like streaming or posting some VODs on YouTube occasionally, but it's not like a fixed schedule.
Yeah, and do you have anything in particular coming up, or is it mostly just more high rank, good gameplay?
It's gonna be just playing Mac pretty much, and keep playing him until I get really good.
Makes sense. And what about you, Sixten? You've fully become addicted to streaming again, I've noticed.
yeah, I started streaming again a couple days ago. So right now I'm trying to reach rank 1 with Stell. My legend climb was a bit delayed because I was busy trying to make guides and YouTube videos, which turns out takes up a lot of time, especially editing. But now I'm focusing on streaming, which allows me to actually play the game. So right now I'm trying to stream at least 4 or 5 hours per day, and that's on twitch.tv/2610. And I also will post my VODs on YouTube. I also aim to make more Stell related content. I'm gonna post a Stell item tier list for fun, where you can see how many Stell items are playable. Spoilers, it's almost all of them. And yeah, I also have this cool Stell spreadsheet guide that I helped Goose father make, so maybe that can be linked in the description here.
Yeah,
I can
where you can read
personally
about
attest that it's a really useful. It's an extremely,
Mhm.
extremely useful guide in terms of
both
like if you're
both
learning to
cat
play Stell or
and
Pig.
both that and the flex guide by Classy, I'll make sure to put in the description.
Yeah, and finally, I also have a Discord server, which I think is usually linked in the description as well. You can go there. Right now, it's a lot of Stella mains joining the server, but there is also Dooley mains. We have Mac mains, we have Vanessa mains, and then we have a few Pig players as well. So feel free to join there if you want to talk to Bazaar. Yeah, that's it for me.
There you go. And what about you, Walter? Where have you been hanging out lately?
The usual spots. I mean, I actually have, since Sixten started streaming again, I've been poking my head in. So come say hello if they're streaming. But mostly, I'm like more of an early morning stream watcher, which for me is like that's like Goose and Leo and Jota and sometimes I catch the tail end uh um of Trynet.
Trynet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. My bad. I just blanked there for a second. So yeah, so I kind of have like a time of day where I'm able to watch and so I kind of end up sticking to the same people who are streaming and then but Sixten, you actually are in that time
Yeah,
area. So
correct.
I have been poking in last couple days. So come say hello to me there.
And Metal,
There we go. Yes,
finally.
finally me. These days, I do have a Twitch. I'm less active there. I'm the most active on YouTube. But on both platforms, I am MetallFenix, 2Ls and an F, same name as you've been seeing on the screen. I mostly do educational guide type content. Part of my hope is that by kind of getting back into and relearning Mac, that is my oldest overview, which means that it is the most extremely out of date. But I haven't really felt like with the last few expansions that they would translate into an exceptionally good way of like making a new overview. But since Mac has kind of returned to its roots, that also coincides with making it possible to potentially do some kind of updated overview there. No promises. I'm definitely putting out more videos of some fashion. I just haven't decided exactly what yet. And if you want more of the podcast itself, as always, we can be found on YouTube as well as Spotify, Apple Podcast, or via RSS feed for your podcast listening app of choice. So you can find us on any of those platforms. And we'll be back next week with another new guest. Same format as always. But in the meantime, hopefully you have enjoyed listening, and wherever you are, I hope that you have a wonderful morning, day, evening, or night, and that perhaps we see you in the next one.